Mina Kimes, Woody Page, Tim Kalishaw, Pablo S. Torre. Today, when you write that big spread and use fancy Rorschach test analogies and they lose, the Mina Kimes curse. Let's go around the horn. Mina, what have you wrought?
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
We'll get to that in a second. Let's start with Ezekiel Elliott. This is like a Rorschach test for Rorschach test, wouldn't you say, Mina? Suspension appealed again. He can play Sunday versus the Chiefs. Tim Kalishaw, we're going to start with you. This is your account, Dallas Cowboys. From a football perspective, is this still smart, fighting and delaying and extending uncertainty?
I think it's their only chance. It's all Zeke can really do. Zeke sees it, on the one hand, he's still trying to clear his name. We know that's not really what this is about. Technically, it's all about legal processing and maneuvering and who has better lawyers and who can find the judge that they like and get the right ruling. But from a football standpoint, yes, it would have been better. Obviously, in hindsight, the Cowboys were 3-3 after 6 games. They wish it had started at the beginning of the year. They could have gone 3-3 with their other running backs. Now it's moving deeper and deeper into the season. The NFL has said in their argument this will go into the playoffs. If that's when this actually happens, playoff games could be affected. Now, obviously, Zeke's lawyers, the NFLPA, they're going to fight that too. But the games do get more important, and you wonder when this is going to happen.
And just looking at their next 3 weeks, this is Kansas City. They got the Falcons, defending NFC champs, and then they have Eagles, who they're looking up at in the division. So is the game plan here delay at least those 3 weeks so they have Zeke for those games and then hope
it's
to
really
get him
not
back?
a game plan like that. I mean, the Cowboys have nothing. This is Zeke and the NFLPA, and the Cowboys are just going to go along for the ride and see what happens.
Pablo Torre?
By some accounting, Tony, this is the 14th development since August 11th in this case. And by some accounting, by the way, the biggest win here is accounting. Like billable hours by lawyers, that's who's winning here. And at bottom of the story is the CBA, its power. It may be some degree of pizza if you listen to what Jerry Jones has been saying over the last 2 days. This is about everything other than domestic violence, which of course makes this somewhat uncomfortable on that most basic level. But if you're the Cowboys, given those 14 developments since August 11th, what you're basically doing, it seems like, is hoping and praying that you keep assembling birds in the hand as opposed to those in the bush. Like, take what you can get now, because who knows what's happening next and how this is going to be ruled, because this is a lot more about everything else as opposed to Ezekiel Elliott's actions in specific.
Mina, what's your read on this?
14 feels low. I think it's undeniable at this point that Zeke should have eaten it at the beginning of the season. Even if you believe he didn't deserve the suspension, it's undeniable that it was always an uphill battle because of the powers afforded to Roger Goodell in the CBA. I mean, there were Patriots fans who probably thought Tom Brady should have taken his case to the Supreme Court. But ultimately, we're glad that he took the suspension in the beginning of the season. Obviously, that worked out for them. Now, Dallas is looking at meaningful games he could miss. As Tim mentioned, he could miss playoff games. They are mired in uncertainty right now. It's like they're stuck between the real world and the upside down. They should have closed the gate early on, Tony.
And Woody Page?
Well, I don't know how I can top the ESPN legal analyst, Tim Kalishaw, but I think he was absolutely right when he said that they should have just gone ahead and accepted it at the beginning of the year, because their record didn't reflect him being on the field. They were a 500 team. I think they thought they were going to get off to a great start. But let me take a different stance here. I think the NFL, after what we've gone through 3 times in court, the judges have ruled that he continues to play. Why not just delay this till the season's over and take care of it in the offseason? We saw the Brady matter stretch out over 2 seasons, and I think that's what we're going to see here. Back and forth, depending on what court. We're now waiting till they can convene 3 judges in the district court. We don't know when that will happen. And as Mina just pointed out, how's Dallas going to feel if it goes into the first playoff game and then Ezekiel can't play? So I think the best thing the NFL could have done and should do is just say, we're going to delay it until the end of the season. Do it in the offseason, and that would be fair to fantasy players, to Dallas fans, and to...
Should that be their consideration at all, Tim?
I don't think so. I mean, this is really, I think the one thing people miss is the significant difference between Zeke and Brady's case is what they were being accused of doing, and that's why Zeke is going to fight this as hard as he can. If he were ultimately to win and never serve that 6-game suspension, that makes a big difference, because if he does serve the 6 games, the next penalty can be a lifetime ban from the league. And he's trying, doing anything he can to avoid that.
Last word, Mina?
Yeah, I don't think the NFL is going to back down or delay this because of the message that would send not just to the league and to the players, but fans, that they don't take this issue seriously. They've drawn the line. They're going to stick to it, Tony.
All right, well, it's a big game this week, Tim. And they were planning on always having Ezekiel Elliott. It's the Chiefs. And we're at the point in the season where the Cowboys need to really make a move if they want to catch Philadelphia. Who do you like this weekend, Sunday?
I like the Cowboys to win this game. I don't know that I like them to ever catch Philadelphia this season. They're pretty much chasing a wild card.
We'll move on. The last 48 hours for the city of Houston. Oh, yes? Oh, no. Deshaun Watson. That's a very long sports page, by the way. Deshaun Watson's ACL tear changes the Texans' season for sure. You can address that, Pablo. But also, specifically, how do you think it affects Deshaun Watson, who was putting together one of the great rookie seasons of all time?
Yeah, I think it derails the season, of course, because this guy was as good, better, obviously, than anyone thought he would be. But Deshaun Watson, the thing that's fascinating about this is that this is a non-contact injury to his knee. The other knee was injured in college. Now he has the other one. And what happens with an athlete's psychology when it comes to a non-contact injury is a shaking of confidence that I think is sort of special. Now, I do think that Deshaun Watson has reasons to be super confident. He has thrown, of course, 19 touchdowns in 7 games. That's the record, breaking Kurt Warner's record that was set when Warner was 28. But the bigger reason to feel confident about Deshaun Watson, if you're Deshaun Watson, is that the guy who is replacing you is Tom Savage. And the Texans have done everything possible to not start Tom Savage, whether it's Osweiler, whether it's Watson. So there's no job security risk. It's simply a matter of, can you feel comfortable moving around as a quarterback?
Yeah, I want you to address that a little bit more. You've written stories, I think, about this, right? The shaking of their confidence, because it was an injury that wasn't from a heinous hit. It was actually just doing motion, a movement you would typically do in the field of play.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, according to the reports we've read, Deshaun Watson, no one knew that he was hurt until later. Like, that's one of those things that when your mortality is at risk at any given second, and you may not even be aware of it, that's something you got to process as a human being operating an imperfect meat sack of a body.
Mina, do you think a meat sack of a body? All right, that's a mute. Mina, do you think there's anything to what Pablo's saying, aside from the meat sack, which is getting another mute?
I don't know if it's going to shake Watson's confidence going forward. He certainly has a lot of it, but I don't think this is devastating for his career, because the timing of it and the nature of it means he probably can come back at the beginning of next season. I don't believe Houston was going to go deep into the playoffs anyways with that defense. And I saw people comparing him to RG3, obviously another great rookie season derailed by a knee injury, but these are very different quarterbacks. Pablo mentioned Deshaun Watson has thrown 19 touchdowns. RG3 threw 20 touchdowns over the course of the entire season. Watson has skills that he never had, and I have every reason to believe he can come back.
Woody Page?
Well, you guys talk as if this is almost a nothing burger surgery, but we've seen it happen before. I'll give you Terrell Davis in the middle of his great career had ACL surgeries on both knees, and he never came back. I mean, RG3, you can talk about his success rate afterward, but he was not much of a quarterback after he came back from his ACL. Bridgewater, we don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, there have been a lot of cases. It's not like Tommy John surgery where your arm comes back stronger. The knee is going to be weaker, and it's not the first year. You got to be concerned about that. It usually takes 2 years before you regain the same kind of ability and flexibility in that knee. So I think there's probably some puzzlement going through his mind, and there should be, because we're not talking about an arm surgery. We're talking about something that could affect you being able to be a great rushing quarterback also.
Kalishaw.
Yeah, I mean, his legs are very important. You've seen some of those magical runs he's made. Now, he's been a great passer, and I don't see that being impacted. And if you're Deshaun Watson, your mentality is probably, I came back from this 3 years ago at Clemson, and I did everything you saw me do there. I'll do it again. Now he deals with both knees moving forward, and we know he's not going to be a running quarterback forever. Everybody tones it down after a few years, and you would hate to see that component of his game be lost right away, because he's just been such a terrific player in a short period of time.
Can we just talk about injuries in general for a second? Because we looked at the numbers. And if injuries seem like they're up this year, it's because they are, moderately. But I'm interested in if you think that's because of how teams use IR now. Star power lost is another thing. Mina, should the league be looking at this as an injury problem or just standard operating procedure?
I don't think it's a tremendous trend yet. Our colleague Bill Barnwell looked at the actual turnover among starting quarterbacks throwing passes and found that there wasn't a dramatic change. It just feels worse because these are stars. That's Odell, that's J.J. Watt, that's Aaron Rodgers, this is Deshaun Watson. These players are appointment television. They're the ones you turn on games to watch, even if you don't care about the outcome, because you want to see if they can do things that take your breath away. So that's a problem, but that's not a trend, Tony.
Woody Page, is that how you see it?
No, I disagree entirely. If you look at the last 6 years in the NFL, the IR list continues to go up, except for 1 year. I mean, that's a disturbing trend that more and more guys are being placed on IR, and more platform kind of guys. You can put together 22 guys that we've all heard of that are Pro Bowlers that are on IR now. And when it's quarterbacks, that just exemplifies exactly what I'm talking about. You've got 6 quarterbacks that are starters that are not playing the rest of the year. So I think it is a disturbing trend and a disturbing thing that needs to be examined by the NFL.
Kalishaw, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, I disagree. The IR list, the IR injured reserve list goes up because of the rule change, and you can take 2 guys off of it, and some of those guys would be getting cut if not for that change. I think this year is an anomaly. I mean, if you look at most quarterbacks, from Eli Manning to Phillip Rivers to Matt Ryan to most of them don't get hurt much, the ones who are successful. This has been weird that Aaron Rodgers lost for this period of time. Andrew Luck, his career derailed.
So you'd say it's fluky. You'd say it's an aberration. It's weird. Pablo, would you say
I will
that?
warn the NFL, though. The NBA, a league which is far less physical and violent, has devoted lots of money into figuring out what marginal safety measures they can take, whether it's schedule changes, whether it's rules changes, whether it's biometric surveying of their players. The NFL would be wise to figure out, at the very least, how much of this is preventable, even if it's a small percentage at the margins.
Or whether playing 4 days after your last game,
Right.
Thursday night football game affects it either. You know what? We'll talk about that when we come back and buy or sell in 2 minutes. Bills 21. This was the Mina Kimes curse and the Rorschach test. If you're going to do a Rorschach test, do it whether you see a football game or a rotten egg that's diluting a brand and unfair to players. Because that's basically what Richie Incognito called it after the game. BS and just about money. Talking about Thursday night football. End your curse, Mina Kimes, by yourself.
First of all, I'm selling the curse. I didn't write about the Bills' defense, which apparently forgot how to tackle the offensive line. I'm also selling some of this talk about Thursday Night Football. Just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how the Raiders and the Chiefs played an amazing game. A few weeks before that, the Rams and the Niners had one of the best games of the season. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. I will concede that the players do not like it. Clearly, it is painful for them, and the oversaturation effect is real, so I wouldn't mind getting rid of it for those reasons.
Woody Page?
Yeah. Most of them are bad. You could point out 2 good apples in a bad barrel. I'm solutions oriented. Cut it back to 10 a year, including opening night and Thanksgiving. Give all the teams buys participating in those 10 games the week before. How will it affect the NFL? It will increase the ratings. And 2, teams would only lose $2 million a year per team.
Oh, you did the math as well. You did the accounting. Billable hours again for Woody Page. Nicely done. Tim Kalishaw, how about you?
Yeah, I don't need to go to Richie Incognito for my moral compass on this issue. I've said before, 3 or 4 Thursday nights, including the season opener, including Thanksgiving, that would be enough. That would be special. It's not special now. Sean McManus at CBS acknowledges the math doesn't work. There's too many games. I think they'll get rid of them sooner rather than later.
Pablo.
Yes, I sell Richie Incognito as a thought leader of any kind, but Mina raises a good point about that October 15 game between the Raiders and the Chiefs. 15 million people watched it, which is about as many people watched the games in this World Series, which was the best World Series ever. I'm just saying the NFL is a huge business, maybe marginally smaller, but they're not exactly in danger yet.
Pablo, this is your 349th show. You should know by now.
Wow.
Don't tell me another panelist had a great idea and a great point.
I'm intellectually
while you're making
honest.
your points. We'll move on. College football, Georgia. First game is number 1 in 9 years. They're home to South Carolina. Alabama has LSU. There's 6 games of ranked team versus ranked team on the schedule this week. Woody Page, buy or sell some movement at the top of the college football playoff rankings this week?
Let me give you a couple of games that really could change it. Bedlam, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, and I know Tim Kalashaw's been on Oklahoma State all year. They could really jump up. The Cowboys could. And also, Clemson has lost a game this year. They're going against NC State's 4-0 in conference. And Clemson could fall, and that could create some change there.
DC, is that what you're seeing?
I wouldn't completely ignore my LSU Tigers chances, but I would focus more, as Woody said, on Oklahoma State. They can score 50 on anybody. They can give up 50 to about anybody. We've seen Oklahoma's pass defense having problems, so I can see Mason Rudolph and the Cowboys upsetting.
Where are we on a prediction where someone says don't completely ignore? Where a thumbs up or thumbs down, Pat, on Kalashaw's don't completely ignore prediction. Pablo Torre, how about you?
I'll tell you what I'm intrigued by. It's Notre Dame versus Wake Forest. Wake Forest isn't ranked, but Notre Dame has this weird thing where they have to win all their games because there's no conference championship in the ACC, and they happen to be to the ACC what The Rock happens to be to the Fast and Furious cast. The most famous member, the one that joined latest, but still everyone kind of dislikes them because their attention is taken away from them. So I think
Notre Dame has Miami next week. Could be looking ahead on the schedule. Kimes, how about you?
All of them are interesting.
I don't see any upsets near the top, but just outside the top 4, I'd watch out for Ohio State and Iowa. Iowa is the king killer. You may remember they upset Michigan last year. They were 24 points underdogs. They've won 3 of their last 4 games at home versus top 5 teams. Do not overlook the Hawkeyes for a
Yeah, those are the games they win. the ones they're not supposed to. Look at these scores. This is pretty tight going into buy or sell 3. Damian Lillard over Brandon Ingram last night. This is ice cold. Blazers beating the Lakers 113-110. Let's talk about Lonzo Ball and his final line. 2 shots, 0 points, 28 minutes. Luke Walton said he was too passive. Tim, is that too passive or is there something else at play here?
I think it's just too passive. I think he's learning there's 82 games and they're not all going to be great. But if you also, I'm not a big plus-minus guy for a single game. But if you do look at that stat, he had the best plus-minus on the floor last night. So it wasn't exactly a detriment to the Lakers when he was out there not scoring.
That's interesting. Pablo Torre?
We often talk about the big man being phased out of the modern game. Being Jason Kidd kind of is similar to that now because Lonzo Ball is one of those guys who loves to be pass first, but the offensive point guard is in vogue, and those offensive point guards like Damian Lillard happen to often be bad defenders. So Lonzo Ball tends to pass up scoring opportunities for himself that are high impact for his teammates who are not as good.
Many times?
I'm reluctant to hit the panic button on Lonzo because he does do so many things well, but the lack of aggression is concerning. He's not taking those shots because he's not beating guys off of the dribble. I cannot remember the last time I saw him take a free throw. You can't play point guard in today's NBA without taking some shots.
Woody Page.
Yeah, he's got to be more aggressive. That'll set up his passing. If he drives inside and dishes off, he's going to get more assists, and he's going to make people more honest to get off that shot. He's got that terrible form, and he's finding out that people are able to block the shot that they couldn't.
Right, that I guess is my bigger question. Is he taking 2 shots in a game because the form's not there? He doesn't trust his shot. And, I mean, that would be an issue, right? That would be something.
The Ainge tells me the Tiger's making a run. Get thrown out and come back and watch with me. So I go out, and there's like the first play in the 3rd quarter. I go for it, like yelling, ah! And he just stares at me. Nothing. And then doing a free throw, he tells me to come over. He says, I want to watch it too.
Do you believe that story from Doc Rivers there, Woody?
Yes, I believe it because I was at that Masters and I walked away and watched the Celtics on television. That's a lie.
I believe it, and I like it. The funny thing is you look at Danny Crawford and Tony Brothers, and they're thinking, he can't be that upset about this call here at the start of the 3rd quarter. What is this all about? But I believe it. Game was meaningless.
Page went for the cheap joke. I'm giving Kalashaw the point. Astros parade today. Everybody was there except Justin Verlander, who's in Italy getting married to Kate Upton. I got a panel here I need to ask this question to. Tim, would you rather be paraded as a world champion or get married in Italy?
Is that even a serious question? Would I rather ride in the back of a truck, streets of Houston, or go to Italy and marry Kate Upton? Woody and I are living proof. You only get a few shots at marriage. You gotta go get married.
As Tim knows, you only get married once, so you better take advantage of that. Parades happen all the time if you're.
You only get married once? I don't think that has.
That's a lie too, Tony.
You asked for the topic, you got it. Go ahead, Kalisha. You earned the FaceTime today.
Tomorrow, the 15th anniversary of Around the Horn. Who would have ever thought it possible? I just want to, as an original cast member, and the only original cast member who wasn't on the original show, that went to Woody and Bob Ryan and Jay Mariotti and TJ Simers. I made day 2. I want to thank all of them. I want to thank Aaron Solomon being here from the start, Tony Realio almost from the start, the newcomers, Mina Kimes, Pablo Torre, Kate Fagan, the ones that are trying to push us out, take our jobs. They do a great job, but they haven't done it yet. They haven't done it yet.
And
Believe that? 15 years?
Miriam.
Can you
Miriam
believe that? You know, we actually haven't made it. It's tomorrow's 15, so Mina, don't write about us today and jinx us, please. That's all I'm asking,
please.
all right?
Please.
That's going to do it, folks. Thanks for always coming around. This is my favorite day, Daylight Savings. We're on a 72.